Hello everyone, it's Scott, and we're back with the rares from day one of Tarkir DragonStorm Previews. But before we get into them, remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Tarkir DragonStorm spoiler season and beyond. And if you're looking for cards from the set, you can always check us out on the web at caffeinatedgamers.tcgplayerpro.com. So let's dive into Tarkir DragonStorm rare previews. So first we've got Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon. It's a land, it provides colorless mana, but you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and you can spend this mana only to cast a dragon spell or an omen spell. Okay, I haven't seen any omen spells yet, but we'll see what those are in the coming days. But this ability to cast dragon spells is very important because I think that's going to allow us to go to that third color more easily to get some of the spirit dragons cast. And for 4 mana, you can sacrifice the land and search your library for a dragon, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So kind of a late game when you don't need that extra land, you can use this to go find a dragon that you need to help win the game. Alright, next we've got United Battlefield for 3 and a white mana. You get a sorcery, and you get to look at the top 7 cards of your library, put up to 2 non-creature, non-land permanent cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is reminiscent of Collective Company, but it's for non-creatures. And I think in a deck like we see currently with the Esper Bounce deck, this might be a good card to go in that because you're going to be able to go 7 deep and get a couple of cards that you want. So I think this is a kind of a logical home for it. We could also see some other decks, maybe the Artifact deck, take this as well and use as a way to get the 3 drops that it needs to function as well. Next we've got Quarcy Revenant for 1 and 2 black mana. You get a vampire. It's a 3/3 with flying, death touch, and lifelink. So very powerful abilities on the card. And you can renew it for 2 and a black mana. You can exile this card from your graveyard and put a flying counter, a death touch counter, and a lifelink counter on target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. So I think this is a card that is going to be competing in that 3-drop spot until we see rotation happen. So I think this probably doesn't see play immediately, but I think as we progress into the next standards year, then I think this is going to be a card that definitely black players are going to want to consider. Next we've got Sidisi, Region of the Mire for 1 and a black mana. You get a legendary creature that's a zombie snake warlock. It's a 1/3. And you can tap it and sacrifice a creature you control with mana value X. Other than Sidiki, return target creature card with mana value X +1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So again, this is another one of those cards that I think in the graveyard decks that we currently have in Standard, I think this is going to be a card that deck will want to look at as a solid option because you're going to be able to mill things into your graveyard over the course of your turns, and this would be a way to get those things back out, and it's a recursive way to do it. So I think that in and of itself is a powerful ability in Standard. Next we've got Temur Battlecrier for a green, a blue, and a red mana. You get an Orc Ranger. That's a 4/3. And during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So obviously when Temur Battlecrier comes into play, it immediately reduces that by 1. So I think this might be a card that finds its way into our dragon deck because it's going to be a cost reduction on your turn when you're casting those kind of cards, and getting those things down to 4-5 mana is going to be a big and important piece in Standard to make the dragon deck playable. So I think this is a card that really helps that deck out by reducing the cost of casting those dragons. Next we've got Frostcliff Siege for 1, a blue, and a red mana. You get an enchantment, And as this enchantment enters the battlefield, you get to choose Jeskai or Temur. If you choose Jeskai, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. And if you choose Temur, creatures you control get +1 and have trample and haste. So I think this is a really important enchantment moving forward. Currently, we don't really have a strong Izzet deck in Standard, but I think this card really could help that because we've got a lot of good prowess cards that don't have haste, and this would be able to give them haste if you choose Temur, or if you're in a deck where you want to really be drawing additional cards, maybe in a Flyers deck, then I think Frostcliff Siege makes a lot of sense there because anytime you do combat damage, you're going to draw that card. So I think this has got a home in Standard. It's just going to be what kind of deck it's built around. Next is Anafenza, Unyielding Lineage. For 2 and a white mana, you can legendary creature that's a Spirit Soldier and is a 2/2 with Flash and First Strike. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Anafenza endures for 2, and you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, or you get to create a 2/2 white spirit creature token. So I think a very powerful card here for Standard. The ability, if your opponent is using spot removal, you flash this in, and all of a sudden you're getting to create a replacement creature for whatever dies, or you're getting to put counters on Anafenza. Either way, I think that's good enough to see Standard play. Next, we've got Voice of Victory. For 1 and a white mana, you get a human bard. It's a 1/3 with Mobilize 2. And whenever this creature attacks, create 2 tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. And your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So I think this is a card that does have Standard application in it. The fact that it prevents your opponent from using spot removal or casting spells on your turn is very important in Standard, because most of the time black and even white removal is coming on your turn. So this is a way of preventing that from happening, and they have to use mana on their own turn, which will in essence give you that opportunity to kind of clear the way for you to cast the spells that you want to when Voice of Victory is on the field. Next, we've got Meringue River Region. For 4 and 2 blue mana, you get a dragon that's a 6/7 with flying, and whenever this creature enters the battlefield, return up to 2 target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. So this is going to bounce 2 things your opponent controls. It also has an adventure, Coiling Catch. For 3 and a blue mana, you get an instant. That's an omen. So this is where that we talked about the omen being one of the things that can be used with the new Dragonland. And you get to draw 3 cards and then discard a card. So I think this is the kind of card I'm going to expect that we're going to see with that new land, Maelstrom of the DragonStorm. And because of that, I think this is definitely going to be playable in Standard. Next, we've got Kotis, the Fangkeeper. For 1, a black, a green, and a blue mana, you get a legendary creature that's a zombie warrior and is a 2/1 with Indestructible. And whenever Kotis deals combat damage to a player, exile the top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. So really powerful ability here. If you can get him in for combat damage, then you get to cast spells off the top of your opponent's library, potentially for free. And that is a very powerful ability in Standard. So if we have a deck that can consistently guarantee that this is going to deal combat damage, then I think it's got a place in Standard. Outside of that, if we can't get a dedicated deck that's going to help this to be able to consistently get in combat damage, then it probably doesn't have a home in Standard. Next, we've got our saga for the day, and that's Rediscover the Way. For a blue, a red, and a white mana, you get a saga, and you get to look at the top 3 cards of your library on chapter 1 and put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. You'll do the same thing on turn 2. So basically you get to look at 3 cards, choose which one is best for the given situation. And then on turn 3, whenever you cast a non-creature spell this turn, target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. So I think this has application if we do indeed get a Jeskai deck specifically in standard, but it might have applications outside of that as well. Being able to, search for a card among those 3 that you really want, and then giving double strike to your creatures, or at least 1 creature every time you cast that non-creature spell on the 3rd chapter, really are good abilities in standard. Alright, and those were the rares from today's previews from DragonStorm. Tell me what you think in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this at Tarkir DragonStorm. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one.